Generational wealth often hides in plain sight, and in Canada, the Japanese-Canadian community has quietly built legacies that stretch back more than a century. From pioneering fishing fleets on the Pacific coast to thriving retail shops on Powell Street, these families turned hard work into lasting fortunes. Others carved out power in logging, luxury dining, and even global fashion empires. Some expanded into timber railroads and oyster farms, while many preserved their influence through property, education, and cultural leadership. This is not just a story of money, it's a story of resilience, reinvention, and endurance. Today, we reveal the top 10 richest old money Japanese families in Canada, ranked from rich to richest. In the number 10 position, we have the Murakami family, pioneers of Canada's Pacific Coast fishing industry. Imagine an era when Japanese immigrants arrived with little more than determination, and within a generation, they commanded entire fleets of fishing boats. The Murakamis weren't just catching fish, they were building wealth, boat by boat, net by net. Their fleets supplied bustling coastal markets, and with every season, their name became tied to reliability and success. What makes their story so compelling is how this fortune reflected a bigger truth. Fishing wasn't only about survival, it was a gateway to property, influence, and legacy. The Murakamis stood at the center of this transformation, embodying the leap from hard labor to lasting prosperity. Their journey set the stage for future Japanese families in Canada, showing how an ocean's bounty could turn into generational wealth that still echoes in history today. In the number 9 position, we have the Maikawa family, one of the standout names in Vancouver's historic Powell Street, also known as Nihonmachi. Before World War II, Powell Street was alive with Japanese-owned shops, restaurants, and cultural centers, and the Maikawas were right in the middle of it. Their general store wasn't just a place to buy goods, it was a hub of community life, connecting families to the products and comforts they needed every day. What made the Maikawas remarkable was their ability to turn simple retail into real wealth. Their business model was smart: reliable supply, loyal customers, and eventually property ownership in a growing city. They transformed fishing profits into shelves full of goods and long-term investments. The Maikawa story proves that wealth isn't always born from grand industries. It can rise from community trust and smart reinvestment, creating a foundation strong enough to endure across generations. In the number 8 position, we have the Kishimoto family, remembered for their sharp eye in balancing fishing, business, and real estate. Like many Japanese-Canadian families before the war, they began with boats on the Pacific, working long hours at sea. But the Kishimotos took their earnings further, investing in storefronts and property in Vancouver's growing neighborhoods. Every boat they owned and every building they acquired wasn't just an asset, it was a stepping stone toward long-term stability. Their story highlights the quiet genius of old money: diversification. Instead of relying on a single trade, the Kishimotos spread their wealth across businesses and land. Even when faced with hardship, this strategy meant they always had multiple sources of income. The Kishimoto legacy is a reminder that fortune doesn't always shout. It builds silently through steady choices that transform hard-earned wages into wealth that can outlast generations. In the number 7 position, we have the Katos family, who carved their fortune not from the sea, but from the towering forests of British Columbia. Logging was brutal work, demanding strength, skill, and a fearless attitude. But the Katos went beyond swinging axes. They became contractors, organizing crews, investing in equipment, and securing valuable contracts with larger companies. This shift from laborers to leaders meant they weren't just earning wages, they were controlling operations. With trucks, tools, and entire teams under their management, the Katos built wealth in an industry that fueled Canada's growth. Timber was gold, and they knew how to tap into its promise. Their influence extended beyond the forest, as logging profits often flowed into property and community ventures. The Kato family story is proof that fortune favors those who rise from workers to owners, turning sweat equity into lasting economic power. In the number 6 position, we have the Nakagama family, whose story reflects resilience and reinvention after one of the darkest chapters in Japanese-Canadian history. After the forced relocations of World War II, many families had to rebuild from nothing, and Ryutaro Nakagama did exactly that. Starting in 1946 with a simple delivery business for Japanese foods in Alberta, he laid the groundwork for what would become a thriving retail legacy. What began as door-to-door deliveries grew into Nakagama's Japanese Foods, a beloved family-run store in Lethbridge that stood for decades. Beyond selling rice and miso, the Nakagamas brought culture, comfort, and community back to displaced Japanese Canadians. Their wealth wasn't flashy, but it was steady, rooted in trust, hard work, and reinvestment. The Nakagama story shows how survival can transform into success, proving that even after loss, family vision can create prosperity that endures. In the number 5 position, we have the Sugiman family, a name tied not only to business, but also to leadership within the Japanese-Canadian community. While many families focused strictly on rebuilding wealth after the war, the Sugimans combined enterprise with influence. From retail ventures to food businesses, they earned a reputation for quality and reliability, but their impact stretched further into civic life, education, and advocacy. This blend of business success and community leadership gave the Sugimans a kind of wealth that was both financial and cultural. Their enterprises provided stability, while their public roles built trust and prestige. In many ways, the Sugiman story reflects the essence of old money. It isn't just about capital, but about the networks, reputation, and continuity that carry a family's name forward. Their legacy shows how influence can multiply prosperity, creating wealth that resonates beyond the balance sheet. In the number 4 position, we have the Hashimoto family, whose fortune is built on something as refined as it is powerful: culinary prestige. Their renowned restaurant, Kaiseki Yuzen Hashimoto in Toronto, is more than a place to eat. It's an institution of Japanese fine dining in Canada. Serving kaiseki, the most traditional and artistic form of Japanese cuisine, the Hashimotos turned cultural mastery into a profitable and enduring business. What sets them apart is how dining became an asset like real estate or industry. By maintaining exclusivity, impeccable quality, and a reputation for luxury, the Hashimotos secured a clientele willing to pay for experience, not just food. This kind of brand-driven wealth is rare, but powerful. It builds slowly, yet it lasts. Their story proves that prestige can be as valuable as property, turning artistry into legacy and placing the Hashimotos among Canada's respected old money families. In the number 3 position, we have the Tanabe family, whose story begins with Luke Tanabe, a visionary designer who brought Japanese precision and creativity to Canada's fashion scene. In 1961, he founded Ports International, later known simply as Ports, a luxury clothing brand that went global. What started in Toronto soon spread across continents, dressing executives, celebrities, and tastemakers with a style that blended East and West. The brilliance of Tanabe's fortune was that it wasn't tied to land or factories, but to intellectual property, the power of design. By building a brand, the family created an asset that could expand endlessly, from boutiques to international licensing. That shift from local business to global label meant their wealth wasn't just preserved, it multiplied. The Tanabe story shows how creativity, when paired with business vision, can rival traditional industries in building dynasties that last for generations. In the number 2 position, we have the Kagetsu family, led by Eikichi Kagetsu, whose empire stretched far beyond one industry. Starting with logging, he controlled not just the timber, but the operations themselves, even building a private rail spur to move lumber efficiently. That kind of vision transformed the Kagetsus from workers into industrialists. Their wealth didn't stop with forests. Eikichi expanded into real estate, maintaining offices in downtown Vancouver and a summer estate in West Vancouver, symbols of rising influence. But perhaps the most fascinating chapter was their move into aquaculture with Fanny Bay oysters, proving the family's ability to diversify and dominate. By spreading investments across timber, transport, property, and food, the Kagetsus created one of the most powerful pre-war Japanese-Canadian fortunes. Their story stands as a blueprint for old money success. Expand, diversify, and always keep control of the resources that fuel your wealth. In the number 1 position, we have the collective legacy of Japanese-Canadian families who turned early struggles into lasting dynasties. From Manzo Nagano, the first documented Japanese immigrant in 1877, to families who endured dispossession during World War II, their fortunes were built on resilience and reinvention. Over generations, many shifted from fishing and logging into property, professional firms, small manufacturing, and investment portfolios, quietly growing their capital in Canada's expanding economy. What makes this group unique is their discretion. Unlike flashy new money, these families guard their wealth, passing it down through businesses, land, and education. Their influence is felt in communities, universities, and industries, but rarely displayed in public. Together, they represent the richest tier of Japanese-Canadian old money, a cohort bound not by one surname, but by shared history and strategy. Their story proves that sometimes the greatest fortunes grow in silence, enduring across centuries.